3 years away. 3 years of dust, gunfire, and nights when I didn't know if I'd live to see the sunrise. Through every mile, every battle, one thought kept me alive. Coming home, holding my wife, seeing my best friend again. But when I finally walked through that door, I found her in his arms, my best friend. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't say a word, I just walked away. But the next morning, I made my move. And what happened next, no one saw coming. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever had the ground ripped out from under you, you know the pain is real. But so is the chance to take back control. And that's what this story is about. Before I tell you exactly how it happened, hit subscribe, not for me, but for the heroes who fight for our country, for the men and women who risk everything for America, and whose stories deserve to be heard and remembered. The plane ride home didn't feel real. After years of sandstorms, gunfire, and sleeping under a foreign sky, I was finally flying toward everything I had fought for. The closer we got, the more my chest ached, not from fear, but from the weight of everything I'd held inside. When the wheels touched down, the sound was like a gunshot in my heart. This was it. I was back on American soil. Every scar, every night I thought I'd never see home again, led to this moment. I remember stepping off that plane into cool evening air. The smell hit me first, not dust, not smoke, but grass, gasoline, and that faint sweetness of autumn leaves. I breathed it in like I'd been holding my breath for 3 years. The drive from the base to my neighborhood felt like flipping through the pages of an old photo album. Streetlights I'd walked under as a kid. Stores I'd passed 1,000 times before. But everything looked smaller somehow, quieter. My boots hit the sidewalk I'd walked 1,000 times before, only now they sounded heavier, as if each step carried the weight of every mile I'd marched overseas. My duffel bag dug into my shoulder, still smelling faintly of gun oil and dust. And my heart pounded faster with every turn I took toward home. I could see it now, the house, curtains drawn, a soft golden light spilling out from the window. For a moment my chest tightened with relief. I had made it. I had come home. I slowed my steps, savoring those last few moments before I saw her. In my mind, I could already hear her voice saying my name. I could see the way she'd smile, the way her arms would wrap around me and make every nightmare fade. But then, I froze. Through that warm glow in the window, I saw 2 shadows. One was hers. I knew that shape like I knew my own heartbeat. The other, I would have recognized anywhere. Broad shoulders, the way he leaned in when he talked, my best friend. And then, they moved closer. Too close, her head tilted up, his hand resting on her back. Before my mind could catch up, I saw it. I saw them, together, in the home I had dreamed of every single day. My heart didn't shatter with some dramatic crash. Number it broke in silence, the kind of break that's almost gentle, so quiet you wonder if it really happened, until the pain comes rushing in like a flood. I didn't knock, I didn't shout, I didn't go inside. I just turned and walked. No plan, no destination. Just the sound of my boots on the pavement, the war still ringing in my ears. I passed the gas station where we'd hung out as kids, the corner store where she'd dragged me on Sunday mornings for coffee and donuts. Every place was haunted now, not by ghosts, but by memories that would never feel the same again. By the time I stopped, I was standing in front of a rundown motel. The neon sign buzzed weakly, like it was trying to keep a secret. I paid cash without looking at the clerk. The key was cold in my hand, and the room smelled faintly of old smoke and cleaner that couldn't quite erase the past. I dropped my bag on the bed and sat in the dark. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the storm building in my chest. The thing about storms is, you can't rush them. You have to let them gather, let them break when they're ready. And that night, in that silence, I made a choice. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Number I was going to decide what happened next. And when I did, they would never see it coming. The night didn't give me sleep. It gave me hours. Hours to replay every mile I'd marched, every promise I'd held on to, and the truth I'd stumbled into without warning. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, something inside me went quiet. Not broken, not defeated. Quiet in the way a sniper steadies his breath before a single, perfect shot. When the first pale light crept through the blinds, I stood. The man who had walked to that motel last night was gone. The man who stood in the mirror now had eyes harder than the war had made them, not because of what happened overseas, but because of what waited for me here. I pulled on clean clothes from the bottom of my duffel, laced my boots tight, not for battle in the desert, but for one here, in my own backyard. I walked to a diner down the block. The smell of coffee hit me before I even stepped inside. I chose the farthest corner, back against the wall, eyes on the door. Old habits don't die. I didn't look at my phone, didn't text, didn't call. I just sat, letting the coffee warm my hands while my mind sharpened. The easy move would have been rage. Kick in the door, throw punches until my knuckles bled. But easy isn't smart. And I didn't come home from war to lose myself in a different kind of fight. That's when the plan began to take shape. Not revenge, not chaos, something colder, cleaner, a chess game. And in that game, I would be the shadow they didn't know was watching. I thought of someone who could help, someone who understood patience and precision better than anyone else I knew. Her name was Claire. We'd served together years before my last deployment. Different units, same dust, same sleepless nights. She'd gotten out long before me, built herself a quiet life a couple towns over. But Claire had two things you could count on: loyalty and the ability to get things done without leaving fingerprints. I sat on a bench outside the bus station, phone in my hand, thumb hovering over her name. 5 years since we'd spoken. Still, I hit call. 3 rings, then her voice. Well, look who's alive. I didn't waste time. Claire, I need your help. Not for a fight, something cleaner. You in? A pause, then the faintest smirk in her tone. Send me the address. I'll bring coffee. We met that afternoon at a diner halfway between her world and mine. She slid into the booth across from me, black coffee in one hand, a battered notebook in the other. I gave her the bare bones. 3 years gone, came home to betrayal. No screaming, no scene, but I wanted the upper hand. Claire didn't blink. She just opened her notebook. First thing, she said, we make them comfortable. Let them believe they've gotten away with it. That's when they stop looking over their shoulder. And that's when you move. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Her fingers tapped it once before letting go. Inside wasn't a weapon, it was information. Bank statements, property records, quiet little cracks in the foundation they didn't even know existed. I ran my hand over the papers, feeling their weight. This wasn't rage anymore. This was precision. Every number, every date, every signature was a potential fault line. That night, in a quiet boarding house with lace curtains and a landlady who smelled of lavender and cigarettes, I spread those papers across a desk under a single lamp. The game board was set, and the first move was mine. It started small, so small they probably didn't notice at first. That was the point. A letter from the bank arriving 2 days late. A payment they were expecting, mysteriously delayed. A subscription they'd set up, cancelled without explanation. Nothing big enough to scream sabotage, just enough to make them pause, frown, wonder if the world was tilting slightly against them. I could see it in my mind. Her at the kitchen table, coffee going cold, staring at a statement that didn't match her math. Him pacing the living room, phone pressed to his ear, on hold with a customer service rep who could only tell him, There's nothing we can do. That's the beauty of the first wave. It doesn't make enemies panic. It makes them uneasy. Uneasy grows fast when guilt is already sitting in your chest. Meanwhile, I was invisible. No calls, no reappearance in town, no whispers in the places we used to go. To them, I was still gone, maybe licking my wounds, maybe trying to move on. That distance was my weapon. You can't defend yourself against an enemy you've convinced yourself doesn't exist anymore. Twice a week, Claire and I would meet in the same diner, same booth in the back. She'd slide fresh papers across the table, new threads to pull, new cracks in the wall. Every time she'd give me that faint smile and say, "Patience makes the blade sharp." And she was right. This wasn't about one big explosion of revenge. I wanted erosion, the kind that eats away at the ground beneath your feet until the whole thing collapses under its own weight. By the third week, I knew the first real shift had happened. Claire walked into the booth, dropped into the seat, and before she even opened her notebook, she said, "They're talking about you." I leaned in. "What are they saying?" Her smirk was slow. "That you've changed, and they don't know what you'll do next." That's when I knew fear had finally taken a seat at their table. And it wasn't going to leave. The second stage wasn't about money anymore. It was about presence, not in a way they could see, but in a way they could feel, like a shadow in the corner of the room that you swear wasn't there before. It started with a plain envelope, no return address, no note. Inside, a single photograph, their house, taken at dusk, the kind of picture that makes you wonder, when was this taken? Who was close enough to get it? I knew she'd show it to him. I knew he'd tell her it was probably nothing. But probably nothing is a seed that grows fast when guilt is already rotting your bones. A week later, another envelope, another photo. This time, her car. Parked outside the grocery store. Rain still clinging to the windshield. Still no note. Still no name. The third delivery wasn't a photo at all. It was a key. Old. Rusted, tied with a strip of faded cloth she would recognize instantly from a storage locker only the three of us had ever used years ago. I didn't explain it, I didn't have to. Sometimes the absence of words is the loudest sound in the room. I pictured them lying awake at night, whispering in the dark. Him double-checking the locks, her pulling the curtains tighter. The same way I had once looked over my shoulder in a war zone. They were now doing it in their own home. This wasn't rage, this was precision, and they were starting to realize they weren't in control anymore. One evening, Claire leaned across the booth and said quietly, "They're not just uneasy now, they're scared. It's time to decide how far you want to take this." I didn't answer right away, because I already knew. The next move would bring me face to face with them. For the first time since the day I came home, it happened on a Thursday evening. The sky had just started bleeding into that deep bruised purple that comes before night. Dusk, the hour when shadows are long and nothing feels certain. I chose it on purpose. They came home together. I could hear the car door slam, the shuffle of their footsteps up the driveway. I stood at the edge of the yard. No uniform, no duffel bag, just me. She saw me first. Her face went pale, then him. His jaw clenched like he was bracing for a punch. I didn't give them either. I walked forward slowly, stopping just short of the porch. 3 years, I said. My voice was steady, almost quiet. 3 years I bled for this country. 3 years I thought of this house as home, and this is what I came back to. Silence. "I'm not here to fight," I went on. "Not the way you think. You've already lost more than you realize. You just haven't felt it all yet." I reached into my jacket, pulled out a small envelope. I set it on the porch rail between us. Inside is the last piece of what I started. Open it, don't open it, doesn't matter. The next chapter is already in motion. They didn't move. The air between us was heavy, almost vibrating. I turned. walked back toward the street, never looked over my shoulder. Because some battles, you win by leaving the field on your own terms. By the time I reached the corner, I knew I'd taken back everything they'd tried to steal from me. Not the past, that was gone, but the power, the control, the part of me that decides how my story ends. And here's the truth. War changes you, but betrayal forges you. It makes you sharper, harder. It teaches you patience like nothing else in this world. You know, when I look back at all of it, the war, the betrayal, the silence, I realize something. This was never just about them. It was about me. About remembering that no matter what someone takes from you, they can't take you. And I think maybe it's about you too. Because if you've ever been blindsided, if you've ever had the ground ripped out from under you, you know the feeling, that heavy, hollow ache in your chest, that moment where you think, maybe I can't get back up from this, but you can. You can stand up, even if your legs shake. You can take back the story, your story, and you can write the ending on your own terms. That's what I did. Not out of rage, but out of respect for myself. And if you've been there, if you've faced that darkness, you know, it changes you. But maybe that's the point. Listen, if you stayed with me until now, I want to ask you for something. Not for me, but for the heroes who fight for our country, for the men and women who stand on the front lines, risk everything, and still come home to face battles no one sees. Hit that subscribe button. Do it so their stories are heard. Do it so their sacrifices are remembered. And in the comments, tell me, if you were standing where I was that night, envelope in hand, what would you have done? Because maybe your answer will help someone else find the strength to take back their story too.